Alright, welcome back. We're going to do Chapter 8, and I broke it into two parts because it's 30 pages, and I don't want to do all that right now. So this is going to be Chapter 8, Part 1, Just Lost My Tripod. It's a good start. It's a sign that this will be a good chapter. It is. It's perfect, and we're keeping it, because it's live, and I can't stop it. Alright, Chapter 8 is called Port Angeles. Jess drove faster than the chief, so we made it to Port Angeles by 4. It had been a while since I had a girls' night out, and the estrogen rush was invigorating. We listened to whiny rocks I don't know. Chapter 8. Bella figured out she's got some feelings. The estrogen rush was invigorating.
Like the gold rush.
We listened to whiny rock songs, while Jessica jabbered on about the boys we hung out with.
Can you be nice to Jessica for one of your life?
Jessica's dinner with Mike had gone very well, and she was hoping that by Saturday night they would have progressed to the first kiss. I smiled to myself, pleased. Angela was passively happy to be going to the dance, but not really interested in Eric. Jess tried to get her to confess who her type was, but I interrupted with a question about dresses after a bit to spare her. Angela threw a grateful glance my way. Port Angeles was beautiful little tourist trap, much more polished and quaint than Forks. But Jessica and Angela knew it well, so they didn't plan to waste time on the picturesque boardwalk by the bay. Jess drove straight to the one big department store in town, which was a few streets in from the bay's area's visitor-friendly face. The dance was billed as semi-formal, and we weren't exactly sure what that meant. Both Jessica and Angela seemed surprised and almost disbelieving when I told them I'd never been to a dance in Phoenix. Didn't you ever go with like a boyfriend or something?
No.
Jess asked dubiously as we walked through the front doors of the store.
With her personality, do you think she's had a boyfriend?
Really? I tried to convince her, not wanting to confess my dancing problems. I've never had a boyfriend or anything close. I didn't go out much. Why not? Jessica demanded. No one asked me. I answered honestly. She looked skeptical. People ask you out here, she reminded me, and you tell them no. We were in the junior section now, scanning the racks for dress-up clothes. Well, except for Tyler, Angela amended quietly. Excuse me, I gasped. What did you say? Tyler told everyone he's taking you to the prom. Jessica informed me with suspicious eyes. He said, what? I sounded like I was choking. I told you it wasn't true, Angela murmured to Jessica. I was silent, still lost in shock that was quickly turning to irritation. But we found the dress racks, and now we had work to do. That's why Lauren doesn't like you, Jessica giggled while we pawed through the clothes. I grinded my teeth. Do you think that if I ran him over with my truck, he would stop feeling guilty about the accident? That he might give up on making amends and call it even? Maybe, Jess snickered, if that's why he's doing this. The dress selection wasn't large, but both of them had found things to try on. I sat on a low chair just inside the dressing room by the three-way mirror, trying to control my fuming. Jess was torn between two. One a long strapless basic black number, the other a knee-length electric blue with spaghetti straps. I encouraged her to go with the blue. Why not play up the eyes? Angela chose a pale pink dress that draped around her tall frame nicely, and brought out honey tints in her light brown hair. I complimented them both generously, and I helped them by returning the rejects to the racks. The whole process was much shorter and easier than similar trips I'd taken with Renee back at home. I guess there was something to be said for limited choices.
Is Renee her mom?
Yeah, Renee's her mom.
Why are you calling her Renee?
I don't know, because she calls her her mom any other time. We headed over to the shoes and accessories. While they tried things on, I merely watched and critiqued, not in the mood to shop for myself, though I did need new shoes. The girls' night high was wearing off in the wake of my annoyance at Tyler, leaving room for the gloom to move in. Angela, I began hesitant while she was tying a pair of pink strappy heels. She was overjoyed to have a date tall enough that she could wear heels at all. Jessica drifted to the jewelry counter and we were alone. Yeah? She held a leg out, twisting her ankle to get a better view of the shoe. I chickened out. I like those. I think I'll get them, though they'll never match anything but the one dress, she mused. Oh, go ahead, they're on sale, I encouraged.
You should get more clothes to match them.
She could, but she's not going to. She's only going to get the one dress in these very specific shoes. She smiled, putting the lid back on the box that contained more practical-looking off-white shoes. I tried again. Angela? She looked up curiously. Is it normal for the Cullens? I kept my eyes on the shoes. To be out of school a lot. I failed miserably in my attempt to sound nonchalant.
Child?
Yeah, when the weather's good, they go backpacking all the time. Even the doctor, they're all real outdoorsy.
Hasn't Jessica already told her this?
And many times, she has been told this. She told me quietly, examining her shoes, too. She didn't ask one question, let alone the hundreds that Jessica would have unleashed. I was beginning to like Angela. Oh. I let the subject drop as Jessica returned to show us the rhinestone jewelry she found matching her silver shoes. We planned to go to dinner at a little Italian restaurant at the boardwalk, but the dress shopping hadn't taken nearly as long as we'd expected. Jess and Angela were going to take their clothes back to the car and then walk down the bay. I told them I'd meet them at the restaurant in 1 hour. I wanted to look for a bookstore.
Of course.
They were both willing to come with me, but I encouraged them to go have fun.
She reads books.
They didn't know how preoccupied I could get surrounded by books. I'm not like other girls.
Like other girls. I ditch my friends to look at books.
It was... it was something I preferred to do alone. She's gonna jack off to these books. They walked off to the car, chattering happily, and I headed to the direction Jess pointed out.
She's gonna try out lesbian porn.
She
She's
is
found out
her
things about herself.
estrogen high. I had no trouble finding the bookstore, but it wasn't what I was looking for. The windows were full of crystals, dream catchers, and books about spiritual healing. I didn't even go inside.
Stop.
Though the glass I could see a 50-year-old woman with long gray hair worn straight down her back, clad in a dress right out of the 60s, smiling welcomely from behind the counter. I decided that was one conversation I could skip.
Wow.
What the fuck, Bella? What a bitch. There had to be a normal bookstore somewhere here. I meandered through the streets, which were filling up with the end of the workday traffic, and hoped I was heading towards downtown. I wasn't paying as much attention as I should to where I was going. I was wrestling with despair. I was trying so hard not to think about him and what Angela had said, and more than anything, trying to beat down my hopes for Saturday, fearing disappointment. When I looked up to see someone's silver Volvo parked across the street, and it all came crashing down on me. Stupid, unreliable vampire, I thought to myself. I stomped along in a southerly direction, toward some glass-fronted shops that looked promising. But when I got to them, they were just repair shops and vacant spaces. I still had too much time to go looking for Jess and Angela yet, and I definitely needed to get my mood in hand before I met back up with them.
Yeah,
I ran...
you need to fucking chill out.
Yeah, she needs, like, vibe checked. I ran my fingers through my hair a couple of times and took some deep breaths before I continued around the corner. I started to realize as I crossed another road that I was going the wrong direction. The little foot traffic I had seen was going north, and it looked like buildings here were mostly warehouses. I decided to turn east on the next corner and then loop around after a few blocks and try my luck on a different street. A group of 4 men turned around the corner I was heading
They're
for.
men, so you know they're
Men! Dressed too casually to be heading home from the office, and they were too grimy to be tourists. As they approached me, I realized they weren't too many years older than I was.
Couldn't they just be guys hanging out?
They're literally
like
just
you
bros.
are, like, walking down the street.
Ew. They were joking loudly amongst themselves, laughing and punching each other. I scooted as far to the side of the sidewalk as I could to give them room, walking swiftly, looking past them. "Hey there," one of them called as they passed, and he had to be talking to me since there was no one else around. 2 of them had paused, the other 2 were slowing. The closest, a heavy-set, dark-haired man in his early 20s, seemed to be the one who had spoken. He was wearing a flannel shirt with a dirty t-shirt inside, cut-off jeans and sandals. He took a half-step towards me. "Hello," I mumbled. Then I quickly looked away and walked faster towards the corner. I could hear them laughing at full volume.
Walking faster.
"Hey, wait," one of them called after me again, but I kept my head down and rounded the corner with a sigh of relief. I could hear them chortling. I found myself on a sidewalk leading past the backs of the several somber-colored warehouses, each with large bay doors for unloading trucks, padlocked for the night. The south side of the street had no sidewalk, only a chain-link fence topped with barbed wire protecting some kind of engine parts in the storage yard. I wandered far past the part of Port Angeles that I, as a guest, was intended to see. It was getting dark. I realized the clouds were finally returning, pillowing up on the western horizon, creating an early sunset. The eastern sky was clear but gray, and God, it's scenery again, shot through with streaks of pink and orange. I left my jacket in the car and suddenly a shiver made me cross my arms.
If you're feeling unsafe, why would you wander farther into the unsafe part of town?
The sky suddenly darkened further, and as I looked over my shoulder to glare at the offending clouds, I realized with shock that there were two men walking quietly behind me. Men! They were from the same group I'd passed on the corner, though neither was the dark one who had spoken to me. I turned my head forward at once, quickening my pace. A chill that had nothing to do with the weather made me shiver again. My purse was on a shoulder strap, and I had it slung across my body, the way you were supposed to wear it so it wouldn't get snatched. I knew exactly where my pepper spray was, still in my duffel bag under my bed, that I never unpacked.
Oh,
I didn't have much
Charlie's
money with me.
Huh?
Yeah, fuck you, Charlie. I didn't have much money with me, just a 20 and some ones. I thought about accidentally dropping my bag and walking away, but a small frightened voice in the back of my mind warned me that they're worse than thieves.
They're rapists! They're gang rapists!
Like, clearly. I listened intently to their quiet footsteps, which were much too quiet when compared to the boisterous noise they'd been making earlier. And it didn't sound like they were speeding up or getting any closer to me. Breathe. I had to remind myself. You don't know they're following you. I continued to walk as quickly as I could without actually running. Focusing on the right-hand turn that was only a few yards away from me now. I could hear them staying as far back as they'd been before, so they're not gaining ground. They're just walking behind you. A blue car turned onto the street from the south and drove quickly past me. I thought of jumping out in front of it.
I don't think you know what gaining ground means.
But I hesitated, inhibited, unsure that I was really being pursued. And then, it was too late. Oh. I reached the corner.
Hello. Can we please squeeze past you? You're walking very slowly.
Goodbye, pardon me. Are you lost? I reached the corner, but a swift glance revealed that it was only a blind drive to the back of another building. I half turned in anticipation. I had to hurriedly correct and dash across the narrow drive back to the sidewalk. The street ended at the next corner. Oh, goodness. Hi, welcome to Chili's. Where there was a stop sign, I concentrated on the faint footsteps behind me, deciding whether or not to run. They sounded further back, though, and I knew that they could outrun me in any case. I was sure to trip and go sprawling if I tried to run. The footfalls were definitely further back. I risked a quick glance over my shoulder, and they were maybe now 40 feet back. I saw with relief, but they were staring at me.
Probably because you keep looking back and staring at them.
It seemed to take forever for me to get to the corner. I kept my pace steady, the men behind me falling ever slightly more behind. Maybe they realized they were scared me and were sorry. I saw two cars going north past the intersection I was heading for. I exhaled in relief. There'd be more people around once I got off this deserted street. I skipped around the corner with a grateful sigh and skidded to a stop. The street was lined on both sides by blank, doorless windows. Windowless walls. Doorless windows. I could see
to normal windows that have doors.
I could see in the distance 2 intersections down, street lamps, cars, and more pedestrians, but they were too far away. Because lounging against the western building midway down the street were the other men from the group. It was all part of the plan. Both watching with excited smiles.
Bella.
As I froze dead on the sidewalk. She's a hot commodity.
I guess.
I realized then I wasn't being followed. I was being herded.
Dun, dun, dun.
I paused for only a second, but it felt like a long time. I turned then and darted down the other side of the road. I had a sinking feeling that it was a wasted attempt. The footsteps behind me were louder now. There you are. A booming voice of the stocky man shattered the intense quiet and made me... Yeah, a voice called loudly behind me, making me jump again as I tried to hurry down the street. We just took a little detour, another voice shouted. This is so silly.
Yeah.
My steps had to slow now. I was closing to the distance between myself and the lounging pair too quickly. I had a good loud scream, and I sucked in air, preparing to use it. But my throat was dry. I wasn't sure if I could manage.
What?
Oh, Bella, you gotta try.
Did you better?
With a quick movement, I slipped my purse over my head, gripping the strap with one hand, ready to surrender it. Oh, I thought she was gonna use it as a mace.
Ready to surrender it.
The thick-set man shrugged away from the wall as I warily came to a stop and walked into the street. Stay away from me, I warned in a voice that was supposed to sound strong and fearless.
Oh my God.
But I was right. It was a dry throat, no volume. Don't be like that, sugar, the man called, and a raucous laughter started behind me.
Is this your wallet?
I braced myself, feet apart, trying to remember through my panic what little self-defense I knew. Heel of the hand thrust upward, hopefully breaking the nose and shoving it into the brain. Finger through the eye socket, try to hook it around and pop the eye out. And the standard knee to the groin, of course. Standard
edition.
That same pessimistic voice in my mind spoke up, reminding me that I wouldn't have a chance. And there were 4 of them. Shut up, I commanded the voice, before terror could encapsulate
me.
Yes, encapsulate me. I was going without taking someone with me. I tried to swallow so I could build up a scream. Headlights suddenly flew around the corner, the car almost hitting the stocky one.
Forcing rapists to murderers now.
They're just escalating. Forcing him to jump back towards the sidewalk. I dove into the road. This car was going to stop or hit me. But the silver car unexpectedly fishtailed around, skidding to a stop with the passenger door open.
Edward.
Get in! A voice commanded. It was amazing how instantaneously the choking fear vanished. Amazing how suddenly the feeling of security washed over me, even before I was cut off the street. As soon as I heard his voice, I jumped into the seat, slamming the door shut behind me. It was dark in the car, no light had come on with the opening of the door, and I could barely see his face in the glow of the dashboard. The tires squealed. Yeah. The tires squealed as he spun around to face north, accelerating too quickly, swerving towards the stunned men on the street. I caught a glimpse of them diving for the sidewalk as he straightened out and sped towards the harbor. That's much less cringe than the movie where he growls at them.
Yeah.
Because they're like, that's a dangerous maneuver, and he's like, "Arr."
And then she just gets it anyway.
Yeah. Put your seatbelt on, he commanded, and I realized I was clutching the seat with both hands. I quickly obeyed. The snap of the belt connecting was loud in the darkness. He took a sharp left, racing forward, blowing through several stop signs without a pause. Like, Edward, they're back there. It's fine.
You're in a car.
You're in a car, and also you're a vampire.
Yeah, so, like, there's really no danger here at all.
But I felt utterly safe. And for the moment, totally unconcerned about where we were going. I stared at his face in profound relief that went beyond my sudden deliverance. I studied his flawless features in the limited light, waiting for my breath to return to normal until it occurred to me that expression was murderously angry.
Okay.
Hey, you okay? I asked, surprised at how hoarse my voice sounded. No, he said curtly, and his tone was livid. I sat in silence, watching his face while his blazing eyes stared straight ahead, until the car came to sudden stop. I glanced around, but it was too dark to see anything besides the vague outline of dark trees crowding the roadside. We weren't in town anymore. Bella, he asked, his voice tight, controlled. Yes? My voice was still rough. I tried to clear my throat. Are you all right? He still didn't look at me, but the fury was plain in his face. Yes, I croaked softly. Distract me, please, he ordered. I'm sorry, what? He exhaled sharply. Just prattle about something unimportant until I calm down. He clarified, closing his eyes, pinching the bridge of his nose with his thumb and forefinger. I racked my brain for something trivial. I'm gonna run over Tyler Crawley tomorrow before school. He was still squeezing his eyes closed, but the corner of his mouth twitched. Why? He's telling everybody that he's taking me to prom. So either he's insane or he's trying to make up for almost killing me last. Well, you remember it. And he thinks prom is somehow the correct way to do this. So I figure if I endanger his life, then we're even, and he can't keep trying to make amends. I don't need enemies, and maybe Lauren would back off if he left me alone. I might have to total his Sintra, though.
I'll kill him, man.
If he doesn't have a ride, he can't take one to prom, I babbled on. I heard about that. He sounded a bit more composed. You did? I asked in disbelief, my previous irritation flaring. If he's paralyzed from the neck down, he can't go to prom either, I muttered, refining my plan. Edward sighed and opened his eyes. Are you better? I asked. Not really. I waited, but he didn't speak again. He leaned his head against the back seat, staring at the ceiling of his car. What is wrong? My voice came out in a whisper. Oh, what's wrong? Sometimes...
What is wrong?
Sometimes I have a problem with my temper, Bella. He was whispering too.
That's something an abuser says.
Yeah, that's a red flag. And he stared out the window, his eyes narrowing into slits. But it wouldn't be helpful for me to turn around and hunt down those. He didn't finish his sentence, looking away, struggling to control his anger. At least, he continued, that's what I'm trying to convince myself.
Oh, boy.
Oh. The words seemed inadequate, but I couldn't think of a better response. We sat in silence again. I glanced at the clock on the dashboard. It was past 6:30. Jessica and Angela will be worried, I murmured. I was supposed to meet them. He started the engine without another word, turning around smoothly and speeding back towards the town. We were under the streetlights in no time at all, still going too fast, weaving with ease through the cars slowly cruising the boardwalk. He parallel parked against the curb in a space I would have thought too small for the Volvo, but he slid it in effortlessly in one try. I was going to say that's an innuendo. Oh, the brownies are done. I'm reading. I looked out the window to see the lights of La Bella Italia and Jess and Angela just leaving, pacing anxiously away from us. How did you know where? I began, but then I shook my head. I heard the door open and turned to see him getting out. What are you doing? I asked. I'm taking you to dinner. He smiled slightly, but his eyes were hard. He stepped out of the car and slammed the door. I fumbled with my seatbelt and then hurried to get out of the car as well. He was waiting for me on the sidewalk. He spoke before I could. Go stop Aunt Jessica and Angela before I have to track them down too. I don't think I could restrain myself if I ran into your other friends again. I shivered at the threat in his voice. Jess! Angela! I yelled after them, waving when they turned. They rushed back to me. They pronounced relief on both their faces simultaneously, changing the subject to surprise when they saw who was standing next to me. They hesitated a few feet from us. Where have you been? Jessica's voice was suspicious. I got lost, I admitted sheepishly. And then I ran into Edward. I gestured towards him. Would it be all right if I join you? Edward asked. And that is the end of part 1 of chapter 8.